ICE inside the business. ICE came to search and are now trapped inside. The FBI has just arrived. Eggs are being thrown at the agents and vehicles. FBI's on screen. FBI's on scene. Things are calming down in LA. The owner locked the business to keep others from getting in because a riot was ensuing. ICE captured 20 people from the location. There's another 20 people. There's another where they took another 20. Crowds were not letting the agents leave, and ICE called FBI for backup. The crowd turned into a mob for a while. This is a fucking right winger, by the way, covering this. So just understand why they're, you know, they're saying it like this. This is how they're framing it.
One of you guys comment, I'll pin it.
Finally, the crowd was pushed back. Vehicles left and the crowd dispersed. Rumors that these people are now going to protest the federal courthouse. Maybe the crowd was illegal also. Probably.
Suck.
This is a new level of insanity. We'll talk about the Kilmar Brega Garcia situation as well. But I don't know how far this administration can take this. This happened in San Diego. ICE took people during business hours. I saw this. I thought people in San Diego actually pushed back the ICE agents, or was that in Minneapolis? There have been like immigrant enforcement actions taking place all around the country. In some places, people have, like citizens, documented natural-born U.S. citizens, have been able to successfully push ICE out in some of the immigrant enforcement actions. Once again, these are dragnets, okay? This is not a legal immigrant enforcement action. This is a dragnet applied against as many fucking people as possible with no actual reason, no real like criminal complaint or anything like that. What in a lot of these circumstances, what these guys do, what the administration does, by their own admission, is to basically claim, or not claim, but like change the court dates of undocumented migrants, or rather not undocumented migrants, but like migrants that are waiting on their applications or their court dates, hoping that some of them will not actually arrive at that court date, hoping that some of them do not have constant contact with their immigration attorneys, and don't have like up-to-date information with the courts in general, so that when they are not properly informed of their court dates, because the court dates changed, for example, they can turn around and say, oh, they didn't show up. This means you're done. This means that you are now officially illegally on U.S. soil. And they do this so they can turn around and apprehend people. Remember, these are not people that are unwilling to cooperate with local law enforcement and federal agencies. These are actually the people that are cooperating with the federal agencies. Make no mistake. They are easier to apprehend. They are easier to apprehend. That's why the people, it's not done at the point of like, criminality. It's not done at the point of like severe and heinous violent crimes or anything. It's done at the point of convenience to the state. It is the most convenient people that you can apprehend. Those who are cooperating with the federal agencies, thinking that, there is a rule of law, thinking that the rule of law is actually being followed, when clearly there is not a rule of law being followed here. And also, they're not too cowardly to go after the real criminals, okay? That's not true at all. It's just that the real criminals are already being gone after. They have been. This is why I kept saying over and over again, the notion that the Biden administration wasn't actually properly prosecuting people that have done crimes because they're undocumented was fucking insane. That's not real. That's not a real situation at all. Undocumented migrants are responsible for less crimes than natural-born U.S. citizens are. Undocumented migrants are responsible for less crimes per capita than natural-born U.S. citizens are. The increase in crime is greatly overstated, greatly overblown, sure. But even the marginal increase and then decrease in crime has nothing to do with waves of migration into the country. Okay? Here is Associated Professor of Public Policy at UVA, Baton, John B. Holbein, saying immigrants have had lower incarceration rates than the U.S. born for 150 years. Immigrant incarceration rates have declined since 1960. Immigrants today are 60% less likely to be incarcerated. This decline is a far broader divergence of outcomes between less educated immigrants and their U.S. born counterparts. There is, since the 60s, there has not been, not this year, no, they're deporting people for tickets and shit, literally taking they can, not this year. There has never been a point where undocumented migrants have done more crime per capita than natural-born U.S. citizens. Natural-born U.S. citizens are responsible for the overwhelming majority of crimes, and they are responsible for a higher share of crimes adjusted to their population numbers. Okay? This is the truth. This is the fucking truth. And when faced with that reality, the dumbest guy you know will turn around, because he's in this chat usually whenever I talk about this. The dumbest guy you know that's in this chat will turn around and say, well, what if they're just like really good at crimes and hiding doing the crimes? Or when they realize that that's too stupid of an argument to make, considering that if that was the case, it would bear itself out in the fucking data, okay? Obviously. Like, or the unsolved crimes. They'll be like, oh, what about the unsolved crimes? Like, they're all actually done by undocumented migrants. It's ridiculous. There is no reason to assume that the per capita density share would not resemble the solved crimes that have been cleared. But also, the last bastion of the last line of defense here is to just simply say, well, crossing the border is a crime. So is fucking jaywalking, you know? The guy they caught in Oregon as the head of the Sinaloa cartel operation that led the biggest fentanyl bust in history had been deported twice and re-entered. Deporting someone doesn't mean they won't come back. Well, there's that too, but these aren't fucking the head of the Sinaloa cartel. These are just like regular ass people that are awaiting their fucking court dates while they work. What's the argument for mass migration? Kazan. Who commits the most crimes per capita? Natural-born U.S. citizens do. American citizens do. Are you trying to say black people? Is that what your argument is going to be? Do you think the likelihood of someone committing crime is born out of their material circumstances, or some other like some other reason, like their culture or their racial? You got them? No, you didn't. You didn't get me at all. You're not listening to my words. Undocumented migrants, despite the fact that they actually comprise of a much poorer group of people from all around the world, by the way, many different demographics, many different ethnic backgrounds, still actually underperform on criminality as opposed to natural-born U.S. citizens who obviously have a higher likelihood to commit crime depending on their financial status.
Damn.
Also, this is still an idiotic fucking argument. The per capita argument on the other side is not an indication of criminality for this group. You don't say every man is a criminal when, you know, 90+% of all violent crimes are committed by men, okay? You don't say every white man is a pedophile rapist when the overwhelming majority of pedophile rapists are white men. So why is it that you turn around and you go, black people currently are committing more crime per capita? Yeah, perhaps the reality there is not necessarily that they commit the most crimes per capita, but they are over-policed, get longer sentences, and on top of that have the highest false arrest records per capita, which is actually the number that you're using. You're not looking at clearance rates. You're not looking at conviction rates. You're actually looking at arrest rates. Of course, a community that is over-policed will have more fucking arrests, partially because policing is very racist in this country. Oh, I can't believe we're just like relitigating the dumbest fucking arguments over and over again. It's like every single fucking day as we devolve. Isn't it better to go through the justice system if someone's committing these heinous crimes? They're saying not just deport them. Obviously, the overwhelming majority of these people being targeted are not criminals, and it's just racing. But by even their own logic, deportation doesn't solve the problem. Yeah, of course not. But it's not even. This kind of enforcement is not done to stop crime. Is my argument. Is my point. This kind of enforcement is done specifically to engage in a white nativist anti-immigrant propaganda operation. If that was the case, if they were actually apprehending fucking violent criminals that were previously left unapprehended as a consequence of their undocumented status in the previous woke administration, then there would be a shit ton more people that they would be apprehending and showcasing the criminality of. But they can't. That's why 90% of the fucking people that they sent to CCOT in the first batch of mass deportations had no criminal record whatsoever, or at most had like unpaid parking tickets. Okay? There were people that have been in the U.S. for 13 plus years that literally had one trespass violation. That's the reason why they got fucking deported to CCOT. They got kidnapped and deported to CCOT, a slave labor colony. Think about how psychotic that is. That's how little we care about the humanity of brown people in this country, undocumented migrants in this country, that we will use their mass deportation as a not like a real fucking reason, but instead it's a do propaganda. It's that crazy. It's that little. There's that little value to the lives of all these fucking people. It's incredible, dude. Anyway, speaking of people that the government, the administration clearly doesn't care about the livelihood of, Kilmar Ortega Garcia appears in court charges on helping traffic thousands of migrants. That's what they're claiming, okay? They are bringing back Kilmar Ortega Garcia into the United States from, first he was sent to CCOT, if you recall, and then a big fuss was made about this by even some Democrats, luckily. And then, what? But you devalue them when you sympathize with Trump supporters this time? What?
What? It's so inconsistent.
Trump voters?
I don't know. Something about it feels very
What?
inconsistent.
What are you saying? What the fuck is wrong with you? Understanding why people are duped into voting for Trump is an important part of my job as a political commentator. Trying to stop them from making this mistake again is also an important part of my job as a political commentator. Okay? I'm not going to treat random Uber drivers as my enemy when I'm having a normal conversation, as I'm applying materialist analysis, as I'm trying to understand how they arrived at the conclusions that they arrived at, while also putting a lot of the blame in the hands of the Democratic Party for not actually creating a decent counter-messaging campaign against this kind of idiotic fucking fascist policy. At no point do I approve.
Jury in the Middle District of Tennessee returned a sealed indictment charging Abrego Garcia with alien smuggling and conspiracy to commit alien smuggling in violation of Title 8 U.S.C. 1324. We want to thank President Bukele for agreeing to return Abrego Garcia to the United States. Our government presented El Salvador with an arrest warrant, and they agreed to return him to our country. We're grateful to President Bukele for agreeing to return him to our country to face these very serious charges. This is what American justice looks like. Upon completion of his sentence, we anticipate he will be returned to his home country of El Salvador. The grand jury found that over the past 9 years, Abrego Garcia has played a significant...
He had no charges before this. They just fucking whipped up a mock charge so they can fucking charge him with something, anything, so they can then turn around and say, haha, we told you so. This guy's actually a real fucking criminal. Make no mistake, Kilmar Abrego Garcia was not sent away to El Salvador for the charges that they're now applying after the fact. And for the record, these charges are not convictions, and obviously in the upcoming days we'll pay close attention to what these charges might be. But it is fucking crazy. It is crazy that they're trying to post hoc rationalize this unjustifiable and illegal deportation campaign after admitting that they made a mistake in deporting him to El Salvador to begin with. The only issue here is this is the first time that the government lawyers, the immigration lawyers, actually admitted that they mistakenly deported him, okay? That was the issue here. They admitted that they mistakenly deported him. There are numerous other people that they also should not have deported to El Salvador, but the government actually made a mistake by admitting a mistake. That's it. And now they're trying to punish him all the more. They're trying to bring him back into the country, and they're trying to do this mock trial after the fact so they can do a post hoc justification for why they deported him to begin with, even though they admitted that they mistakenly deported him and it was illegal to deport him to El Salvador. Isn't it worrying that they're confident enough to go for a trial it's worrying, but not for the reasons why you imply it's worrying. You think it's worrisome because you think maybe deep down inside that they have a valid case. I think it's worrisome because it is an erosion of justice that they actually have the confidence of post hoc rationalizations for a false immigrant enforcement action that they recognized was a mistake. Do you understand? They just aren't concerned with anything other than the aesthetics, and they have a plan for what they plan for after they lose, blaming liberal judges, etc. Yeah, most likely. Most likely. If they actually give him a trial, any halfway decent lawyer can tear apart this case in 5 seconds. Yes. There are so many different ways of tackling this issue. Obviously, one of them is malicious prosecution. But then beyond that, like, I suspect that the charges that they're declaring are ridiculous to begin with. It's like when you, in the state of Florida, if you actually talk back to a cop, it's illegal. Did you guys know that? There's like there's a different penalty for obstruction of justice by refusing to comply. Okay, it's still under resisting arrest. It's still considered obstruction of justice, and that sounds serious, right? But then you look at the actual situation, and the cop is like trying to give you lip, and you just don't take it, and you're like, dude, fuck off. And it's on the recording, but it's still technically illegal. Do you understand? Osama, I'm at your house. Don't freak out. Wait, why? Why are you at my house? They were about to get sanctions from a judge for making no effort to return him, so they decided to do this to avoid the sanctions. Yeah, I feel like it's a very small win in the sense that it seems like they're trying to save face after playing hardline with the judiciary regarding the illegal removal. That's what it feels like to me too.
Smuggling ring.
What are you doing here?
They found
What are you doing?
This was his full-time job, not a contractor. He was a smuggler of humans and children and women. He made over 100 trips, the grand jury found, smuggling people throughout our country. MS-13 members, violent gang terrorist organization members throughout our country. Thousands of illegal aliens were smuggled. This is discussion.
The reason why I brought up the obstruction of justice charge that's like completely stupid in the state of Florida is because what these guys are considering like smuggling thousands of illegal aliens or whatever could just as easily have been carpool with Kilmar Abrego Garcia and his fucking co-workers. Okay? Just because the state has a nefarious way of framing certain activities should not be, for all of you at least, an instant proof that this person has engaged in a heinous act of criminality. Okay,
this mask.
Like they could say an Uber driver has engaged in human trafficking of thousands of illegal aliens.
Perhaps it has an obligation that I see.
I don't know. I don't know what it is. But what I do know, I don't know what it is that they're charging him with, or like how much truth there is to the claims. But what I do know is this. None of this was the reason why they fucking deported him. As a matter of fact, they then turned around and admitted that they had no reason to deport him other than the fact that they considered him to be undocumented and that it was an accident that they deported him to the one country that he had a withdrawal from, a removal from, which is El Salvador, because his life would be in jeopardy if he went into El Salvador, if he was deported back to El Salvador. This kind of post hoc rationalization is literally illegal, okay? not only is it illegal to deport someone to El Salvador if previous courts have said he is not deportable to El Salvador, it is also illegal and unconstitutional to add additional charges after the fact. Fucking ridiculous. I like that they're just claiming he's a MS-13 undocumented migrant trafficker.
Actually disturbing because Abrego Garcia is also alleged with transporting minor children. The defendant traded the innocence of minor children for profit. There are even more disturbing facts that the grand jury uncovered. It is alleged this defendant is part of the same smuggling ring responsible for the death of more than 60 migrants in 2021 after the traffic trailer overturned in Mexico. This is part of that same ring. The defendant abused undocumented alien females, according to co-conspirators, who were under his control while transporting them throughout our country. This defendant trafficked firearms and narcotics throughout our country on multiple occasions.
What?
They were using vehicles, SUVs, with added seats in the back, floors that had been ripped out, guns, narcotics, children, women.
What is insane about this story, once again, is that at his point of deportation, by the way, it still would have been illegal to deport him to El Salvador. But if all of this evidence supposedly was used in a court of law to engage in a lawful removal action, okay, then there would be no back and forth, no media controversy surrounding Kilmar Abrego Garcia's detention and unlawful deportation to El Salvador. Well, not to El Salvador. If all of this information was valid enough to present to a judge, okay, they could probably even remove his previous previous immigrant court enforcement that made it illegal to send him to El Salvador, and that they could have legally deported him to El Salvador. Okay?
MS-13 members. That is what the grand jury found. A co-conspirator alleged that the defendant solicited photographs and videos of a minor. A co-conspirator also alleges the defendant played a role in the murder of a rival gang member's mother. These facts demonstrate Abrego Garcia.
Okay, this language views the game away. They're offering deals to people to name Abrego Garcia as an accomplice in the cases they're being prosecuted on. She's naming the sources as those currently being prosecuted as the sources. Yeah, which is ironic because his initial brush with ICE also happened to be some random fucking guy that alleged that he was actually MS-13 to get a lower charge. And the MS-13 gang that he was supposedly a part of was operating out of a state that he had never actually been inside of, which immediately made it so stupid that even an immigration court did not find it reasonable enough. Think about that. Immigration courts are not exactly your fucking friend. They're not exactly friends to the undocumented migrants. Okay? So if an immigration court doesn't find it to be serious enough, an accusation to be like valid enough, is not gonna, it's not real. Yeah. For some context, a grand jury can issue an indictment with probable cause that the person committed the offense. That burden of proof is insanely low, about 10 to 15% certainty that something is true. Only the prosecution can offer evidence, and there's no other narrative shown besides what the government than the government wants to prove. Yes. not true about grand jury indictments? What do you think the fucking a grand jury can indict a ham sandwich cliche is about? No, that doesn't mean anything. A grand jury indictment doesn't fucking mean anything. What's more meaningful is the actual court proceedings, where the prosecution will make prosecution, which will be the state, right? Will bring up as many trumped up charges as possible with a fucking faucet of ridiculous, erroneous claims, at least claims that they have enough evidence to tie to Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And then the defense will fight back against those charges. And if they're competent enough, will disprove a bunch of them, or at least cast doubt on a lot of them enough that a jury of his peers will not fucking convict him or find him guilty beyond reasonable doubt. A grand jury is different than this process.
Is a danger to our community. We want to thank the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, our state and local partners, our acting U.S. Attorney Robert McGuire, and prosecutors from the Joint Task Force Vulcan.
Criminal charges for alleged human trafficking.
Mistakenly deported Salvadoran native Kilmar Abrego Garcia appeared in a Tennessee courtroom Friday, hours after he was brought back into the United States to face criminal charges for allegedly transporting undocumented migrants within the U.S. More than 2 months after Trump administration admitted it mistakenly deported Abrego Garcia from Maryland to his native El Salvador. Federal grand jury indicted him for allegedly transporting undocumented migrants within the United States. A 2-count indictment, which was filed under seal in federal court in Tennessee last month and unsealed Friday, alleges Abrego Garcia, 29, participated in a year-long conspiracy to haul undocumented migrants from Texas to the interior of the country. The return of Abrego Garcia from his native El Salvador follows a series of court battles in which the Trump administration repeatedly said it was unable to bring him back, drawing the country to... That was the other side. They were like, oh, we can't bring him back. Oh, it turns out they can, expeditiously, as a matter of fact. And they did. He made his initial court appearance Friday evening in the Middle District of Tennessee, answering yes, I understand in Spanish, when the U.S. Magistrate Judge Barbara Holmes asked him if he understood the charges against him. Judge Holmes set his hearing for June 13th, where Abrego Garcia will be arraigned on charges, and the judge will take up the government's motion to hold him in pretrial detention because he poses a danger to the community and a serious flight risk. Yeah, he's gonna fucking escape and then leave the country? Is that what the argument is? Meanwhile, some really sketchy shit's happening, as I said. As where is it? Aaron Melnick, the immigration attorney that hold on. Aaron Lachlan Melnick was reporting on. He's been talking about this case quite a bit. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. The initial prosecutor, Ben Schrader, the former chief of the criminal division for the U.S. Attorney's Office in Nashville, resigned following the office's decision to seek an indictment against Kilmar Abrego Garcia. The fucking chief of the criminal division for the U.S. Attorney's Office in Nashville resigned. If convicted at trial, the defendant faces a maximum punishment of 10 years imprisonment for each alien he transported, said the government's motion for detention, which also contained an allegation not included in the indictment that one of Abrego Garcia's co-conspirators told authorities that Abrego Garcia participated in the murder. Oh, come on. Abrego Garcia's attorney in an online press briefing called the charges against his client an abuse of power. They'll stop at nothing at all, even some of the most preposterous charges imaginable, just to avoid admitting that they made a mistake, which is what everyone knows about this case, said attorney Simon Sandoval Mosenberg. Mr. Garcia is going to be vigorously defending the charges against them, the attorney said. The decision to pursue the indictment against Abrego Garcia led to the abrupt departure of Ben Schrader, a high-ranking federal prosecutor in Tennessee. Sources briefed on Schrader's decision told ABC News. Schrader's resignation was prompted by concerns that the case was being pursued for political reasons, the sources said. Schrader, who spent 15 years in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Nashville and was most recently the chief of the criminal division, declined to comment when contacted by ABC News. Shadows also might be thinking Abrego Garcia is from Maryland. Why is he indicted in Tennessee? Well, all the government needs to allege is that Abrego Garcia drove through Tennessee while carrying out the crime, which could literally be driving someone with undocumented status. It's a pretty clear judge shopping to get someone as a judge who is conservative. Yes. And also, the reason why he was stopped was because he was speeding in Tennessee. Where is it? Bond said if Abrego Garcia is convicted of the charges, blah, 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 blah. Grand jury found over the past 9 years, all these lies and shit. From the beginning, this case has made one thing painfully clear. The government had the power to bring him back at any time. Instead, they chose to play games with the court and with a man's life. We're not just fighting for Kilmar. We're fighting to ensure due process rights are protected for everyone. Because tomorrow, this could be any of us if we let the power go unchecked, if we ignore our constitution. Abrego Garcia, Salvadoran native who had been living with his wife. Oh, by the way, the only piece of evidence they have is a video of him in Tennessee driving with people from a traffic stop. That's why it's in Tennessee, not judge shopping. No, because the supposed crime is literally fucking a speeding ticket or whatever, or it is the same as judge shopping. He could have had a speeding ticket with undocumented migrants in fucking Maryland as well. Because it's not an indication that he was actually fucking human trafficking. Do you understand? Also, everything that this administration does revolves around judge shopping. It's the same fucking reason why they send people down to the Jenna facility in Louisiana. If anything, the reason why they did this is probably because I suspect the reason why they did this is because it's the only thing that they could hold on to, like the only thing that they could grab onto. Not to say that like everyone in Tennessee is fucked up and a right-wing judge or a conservative judge, but I suspect that out of this guy's like entire existence, that was the only thing that they could grab onto that had at least like a likelihood of having a more conservative judge. Yeah, Pam Bondi literally said he participated in a conspiracy that ended up in the smuggling of 1,000 migrants across the country. They literally could have charged him anywhere if they wanted, if they had any evidence that Abrego Garcia was in that state. Since the only shred of evidence was that he was in Tennessee, that was the only thing other than that he could be indicted in. Simple. Exactly. They couldn't get him on. They know that it will be made mincemeat in the state of Maryland. So outside of Maryland, Tennessee is the second best option that they had, seemingly. I'm sure that if they had found him in a vehicle. If they had caught him with a parking ticket in fucking Texas or Louisiana, or I don't know, like anything, any minor thing that he had done in any of these states where he had a brush with law enforcement, they would have used that state instead. Well, I guess it depends. It depends on the severity of the crime too. That's precisely the reason why one of the ridiculous allegations made by another person that was apprehended that was that he was actually a part of an MS-13 gang that operates out of Long Island, despite the fact that he was never in fucking New York. There was no evidence that he'd ever been in New York. So let's drop that part real quick, if you recall. The Trump administration is now also, this is the same guy that Trump claimed had a fucking tattoo of M, tattoo of S, tattoo of 1 and 3 on his knuckles. Okay, That's the same guy. So excuse me for being a little fucking skeptical about this government that is lying like Israel does, okay? We're at the Israel level of lies now, like stupid and childish. The administration argued, however, that Abrego Garcia should not be returned to the U.S. because he's a member of the transnational Salvadoran gang. Abrego Garcia's family filed a lawsuit over his deportation. The U.S. District Judge Paul Lizins in Maryland ordered the Trump administration to facilitate his return. Abrego Garcia was initially sent. Criminal investigation that led to the charge was launched in April as the federal authorities began dude, okay. The criminal investigation that led to the charges was launched in April. Also after they deported him and then admitted that they mistakenly deported him, and then a judge said he has to be returned after a Supreme Court unanimous decision that stated that a facilitation of his return must be started. Only after that they started an investigation to the criminal fucking mastermind. Wow. How incredible, dude. That's crazy. That's so sick that it was just, they just really lucked out. Yeah, SCOTUS ruling was literally the 10th of April, so right after the Supreme Court ruling, they just happened upon an investigation where they looked through every single brush-in that this man has had with law enforcement. The best they could find was a fucking traffic stop. That obviously didn't even reach the level of scrutiny from the Tennessee Highway Patrol that they didn't apprehend him. What is the argument here? That the Tennessee Highway Patrol was like, go right ahead, sir. It's very obvious that you are a part of MS-13 and you are criminally trafficking these undocumented migrants, but we just realized you're undocumented, so we're just gonna let you go. Mr. Trafficker of Thousands. Do you think that's what happened? Do you think Tennessee Highway Patrol is in collaboration, is in cahoots with MS-13, and that's why they fucking let him go? Abrego Garcia was pulled over for speeding in a vehicle with 8 passengers and told police they had been working construction in Missouri. According to body camera footage of the 2022 traffic stop, the Tennessee troopers after questioning Abrego Garcia discussed among themselves their suspicions that Abrego Garcia might be transporting people for money because 9 people were traveling without luggage, but Abrego Garcia was not ticketed or charged. The officers ultimately allowed Abrego Garcia to drive on with just a warning about an expired driver's license, according to a report about the stop released. So even the fucking racist-ass Tennessee Highway, the Tennessee Highway Patrol people were like, yo, this guy's real Mexican looking. Maybe them boys are undocumented. Okay, fuck it, let him go. As was circumstances have changed since Abrego Garcia was not taken into custody during that traffic stop in Tennessee, Bondi replied, what has changed is Donald Trump is now the president of the United States and our borders are again secure. Thanks to the bright light that has been shined on Abrego Garcia, this investigation continues with actually amazing police work as opposed to the woke and gay police work under the Brandon leadership. Yeah, when Brandon was the president, he obviously was able to hypnotize every single cop in our glorious nation and stop them from doing their fucking job, which somehow requires cops to be extra racist, more racist than they normally would be. They said in the indictment that the Suburban doesn't have a third row seating and they had MS-13 installed. The Suburban literally has third row seating law. Even if they fucking installed third row seating, how would that be an indication that this is actually a trafficking vehicle? That's just the argument from the state.
It is.
We don't have to believe the argument from the fucking state that is very clearly trying to do a shambolic trial after the fact. After the fucking Supreme Court decision, chat. What are you, fucking nuts?
I've kept your flesh safe, foundling.
Where's the goddamn... There's body camera footage that was released as well. How can she be so incompetent? No, on this issue, they can be incompetent. It doesn't matter because the goal is not to like... The goal is not to actually find real criminal migrants. The goal is to just make it seem like they're, you know, doing real immigrant enforcement action. And because in the process, they're just like sweeping away random fucking people that are clearly not, you know, they're not doing anything. That it's going to be quite difficult for them to like make a competent case.
How are you? All right. Everything good? You got a bunch of people here, don't you?
1%. Yes.
Go back to work. Gotcha. Where are you working at?
Where?
Where?
San Luis, Missouri.
Missouri?
Yes, sir.
But I'm from America. Now, the reason I stopped you, we was running 75 down through here.
75?
Well, this is 65 through here.
I know, I'm going to 70.
Going 70?
Yeah. What's the limit right now? 70 to 65.
65.
Wait, they stopped him for 75? He didn't even lie. He said 10 over? How the fuck? Bro, 75 on a freeway at what? What is this? Is it 8 p.m. or is it actually, I don't remember. It was like, I guess it is 8 p.m.
Do.
Bro, 75 on a fucking highway. Oh my God. Hassan is so California coded because he drives 85. Every American drives 10 over. It is like, that is ridiculous. I've never heard someone getting fucking pulled over for going 10 over unless they're black or brown. 10 over is standard, dude. What the fuck? This is Tennessee. They take speeding extremely seriously down there. The cops' cars are painted to blend into the mountains too. They're extremely serious. I hate fucking driving there. They're insane about speeding in Tennessee. Like literally never ever speed in Tennessee, chat.
Yeah, some states are.
There are towns in the South that basically only exist through speeding ticketing revenue. They will pull you over for anything. Wow. As a Tennessean, I've got a 67 and a 65 in Nashville. What the fuck?
Hey man,
What the fuck? Yo, that is... Okay, bro. America is not the land of the free, dog. Okay? I'm sorry. I know this is not the main point of contention, but if red states are operating entirely off of revenue that they generate on these insane tickets that they're issuing, America is not the land of the free. This is a fucking police state.
You know this.
How the fuck do right-wing...
Hassan, you're supposed... You know this. Like, that's how the prison industrial complex works. What the fuck, man? You know this shit.
not revolt on a daily basis. Yeah, not the land of the free, the land of the fee, dude. What the hell? What the hell? Oh my God. Oh my God. Bro, you get high beamed if you don't go over 10 in California. If obviously it's not bumper to bumper traffic. Like what? You could be on the rightmost lane and you'll have a busted ass pickup truck hitting you with the high beams being like, what the fuck are you doing? You're going 65 on the highway. What are you, stupid? What do you got, issues, dude? You got nowhere to be? What's going on? In New Mexico, if you're not going 10, you overbeat. Okay, let's keep going.
I can see it, sir. You got all your info.
I see the order, the